Welcome to The Long Game with Peter Holland. Real conversations about sales, leadership, and long-term growth. No shortcuts, no quick wins, just experience, insight, and lessons that last.
All right, let's just go for it. So, welcome to The Long Game. I'm Peter Holland, and this podcast is really for sales leaders that want to think beyond the next quarter. Okay, we're looking at building something that actually lasts, high-performing sales cultures. And we want to talk about selling with purpose and selling with trust here, and creating high-performance teams that are really selling on value. So not talking about pressure, discounts, and short-term fixes here. So we want to have real conversations, no hype, no gimmicks, just real practical insights from leaders who believe that the best results come from the long run. So I'm delighted to be joined today by Shawn Hamilton. Shawn is a leader who sits at a very interesting position. It's the rare intersection of high-level executive experience matched with rigorous academic research. So Shawn is the founder of Synergy Growth Advisors, and he operates as a rigorous architect of sales revenue engines. So this is where he combines deep academic theory along with disciplined operational structure to drive measurable results. And he's also the executive doctorate in business administration along with the University of Houston Bauer College of Business, where he's been researching the impact of ethical sales leadership on retention. And he also holds a Master's of Science in Sales Leadership. So he joins us today to have a really interesting conversation about replacing guesswork with rigorous architecture to drive that true revenue engine. So welcome, Shawn.
Thank you, Peter.
It's good to have you here. And Shawn, I know your bio describes you as an architect of revenue engines who uses academic theory. So the interesting thing is you've worked inside the Fortune 500. I know you've scaled SMEs from sort of 20 million to 100 million, yet you're actively pursuing a doctorate in sales leadership. So why did you decide to kind of go back to academia after having so much success like in the C-suite?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Thanks, Peter. So I look at this as most sales leaders operate on a very gut instinct, which has got them a long ways, right? But it's not predictable, and so I wanted to bridge the gap by using academic theory and understanding academic theory and put into a rigorous testing kind of piece and kind of bridge the two together, because there is clearly a gap that's there. And so I call myself a pracademic, a practicing academic for that reason. And I wanted to make sure that this gap could be filled. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, do you believe then that there is a blueprint in the research that maybe most businesses are actually missing?
Yeah, I do. It's buried in organizational behavior and management theory. See, most businesses ignore the structural sides of sales, right? Mm-hmm. Treating it as a series of lucky breaks rather than repeatable engineered processes. And as a scholar practitioner, because I wanted to replace hope with architecture, I really believe that there is a true blueprint that is there.
Yeah, that's interesting, because living on hopium is not a good drug, right?
It's not at all.
Good stuff. Okay, well, let's dig into that 20 to 100 million growth story that was that you delivered for the industrial manufacturing client. I mean, growth like that typically that can break things if you're not careful. Did you have to architect like a special structure to handle that velocity? Or was it more about hiring people, or was it like a fundamental rebuild of the sales engine?
Yeah. So one of the things is you can't just throw fuel on a fire, right? That's a bad bad idea. So
Mm.
hiring more people wasn't really the problem, and it wasn't a broken engine, right? It was a focus on the sales infrastructure. Just to hire more people wasn't going to do the right thing. But we need to really focus on the ideal customer profile and the exact stages of success for the salesperson, right? So we were able to manage the without breaking things, because as you mentioned,
Yeah.
right? We're able to manage things because we created consistency. And so that's the way we were able to do it is and build a framework where sales processes weren't necessarily consistent,
Mm.
and independent of the individual's magic, right? That was there. We needed to turn it from a hero-based organization into a system-based organization.
Sure.
So
Now I know you're a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and most people think of sales kind of probably more as an art form, but you talk about it as a discipline here. How did you apply that level of kind of scientific rigor and structure to a sales team without, just killing that creativity?
sure. So we're familiar in sales with applying the Pareto 80/20 rule, right?
Sure.
But there's a different way of looking at that, and that could be in the logistics of sales, like in the data entry and the follow-up and the scheduling and the prospect flow and things like that. So that's actually where the Lean Six Sigma belongs, right? It's about eliminating waste and friction. That allows the salesperson to be free, to be artistic, right? So the boring parts, the part that most salespeople don't want to do, we make that in the Lean Six Sigma. We foster that in Lean Six Sigma way, and we free the salesperson to be creative as they need to be
Right.
in the other parts of the world, in the sales, not the process, but in the selling of their product and service, right?
Sure. Get you. And I think that's really, really important, because most people, a lot of salespeople, they see the process and the systems, and they kind of see it as admin. And I guess what we're trying to do is trying to help them to see, look, we want to reduce the friction, just make it as simple and easy for you to get out there and do what you do best, and support you. So I know that's quite sort of leads into this next topic that we wanted to talk about, which was really touching on what you're doing with your current doctoral research, which was leadership and management of salespeople. I mean, we often kind of think of like leadership as I guess, a bit of a soft skill often, but you seem to view it as more of a structural component of the revenue engine. I mean, what's the research telling you about the sort of systemic reasons why those maybe the high performers in an organization, why they leave, and how does that ethical leadership function as a way to as a mechanism for retention?
Sure. So one thing I'm realizing is historically we look at a new sales manager or that comes in, and when they get promoted, because there's a promotion that's taking place, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time it's an internal promotion. We throw them into a sales leader position, and they're not prepared, right? And the
Mm.
or and more importantly, the organization's not prepared to to manage that. And so there's some internal friction that is taking place. So
Okay.
it's actually a systemic failure, as opposed to an individual failure. And the vast majority of the time, we say we need to send the new sales manager to training when that only fixes part of the problem.
Right.
Um, right. It doesn't fix the systemic piece that goes along with it.
Yeah. So, in your view, where do most sales kind of managers fail when they try and make this transition from maybe being the super seller, to the leader? is it like a lack of discipline, or are they just trying to operate without really, a sort of theoretical map in place?
Well, so Peter, there's the skill set and the dynamics of an individual that makes them a very good salesperson, that hero
Mm,
salesperson. It is not exactly the same as the skill sets they need to be a leader, right?
no.
So a very skilled salesperson intrinsically needs to be a little bit selfish, right?
Mm,
So that they can pursue things. You do not want, most organizations do not want a selfish leader, right? That's a very bad trait to have. So you cause some friction that takes place there, right? And when it comes to that super seller being a leader, if they're able to manage it, let's just say that they're able to manage it in that player coach role, right? Because a lot of times people get brought in to be that player and coach at the
yeah.
same time. And so you have the player who is out there closing, and then you have the coach. They're having to change their mindset, right? Go back and forth, back and forth.
Mm.
It's very hard to coach somebody to close how to close when you're doing all the closing.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally. It's
it,
it's it's not a very tenable position for sure.
it
And
is not.
yeah, I totally agree with you. From the research and working with clients here in the UK, I've seen, multiple times that it's such a huge shift in mindset. It's almost 100% different because you're trying to lead and develop a group of people to attain the goal rather than you doing it. So there's a huge amount of pitfalls which any of us would fall into if we hadn't studied it, or we hadn't got the coaching and the help to make that transition. So that makes a whole lot of sense. Um,
Yeah, Peter, there's one thing I'd also like to kind of bring it back from that to the architectural piece, right, that we
yeah.
started off with, is to recognize that the leader, their core job is to build the machine,
Mm,
right? And the salesperson, their job is to crank the machine. It's hard to build and crank simultaneously.
exactly.
It's
Yeah.
very difficult to do that.
Now, I don't know whether this is. I know we've spoken before about this, but it's something that I'm seeing in the UK. But I've also, reached out to others, including yourself, to talk about a gap that seems to be very, very evident, and that is that for like sales leaders, where do we go to learn that profession? Is it really a professional management discipline? Because what I'm seeing, talking to other leaders, is and looking at the universities, these MBA programs don't have sales management, sales leadership as a core piece of the academic course. Where you'll find it, it's an elective subject, usually tucked inside marketing down under entrepreneurialism or something. It's really nowhere to be seen. So here you have a situation where a leader could come from finance or production. They're then placed at CEO or managing director level, and they have no experience of the sales organization. They find it very frustrating. They seem to Many of them say, how do I get accountability over sales department? All the other departments have this really strong rigor and process, which I can follow. But then I get to sales. I don't know how you see that.
You know what? I agree with you, Peter. I can tell you that. So there is if you follow the logic, right? If you're in finance, as an example, the discipline doesn't change,
Mm,
right? As you move up, you all you do is you absorb leadership roles as you move forward. But as we just talked about, there's a there's a mental transition that takes place as you get promoted in that sales version,
mm,
right? And understanding how it's different. If you're a basic accountant, you use gap as your
yep,
as
your
your
measure.
format, as a basic accountant, and you use the same thing as if you're the CFO.
Mm.
What you do is you stack on leadership, you stack on the personal pieces that go along with it, and leadership. And that's not the case in sales. There's a major transition that takes place. And academic institutions historically have not done that. They have not taught that, and they assume, and I'm putting words in their mouth right now, but there's an assumption that all leadership is the same, and can't be it can't be the same, from that standpoint, because you have to. Salespeople are unique and very dynamic, and to lead them, it takes a different person, right? So helping salespeople build an architectural piece, a leadership piece that can be embraced by salespeople is completely different, because historically it hasn't happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what looking at all of the research and looking back on, maybe the last 20, 30 years of where sales has come to, we've got kind of inconsistent processes, which are then not administered with sort of regularity and any rigor. And then of course IT comes along, and then we've layered CRM systems on top of an unstructured foundation. So we're kind of automating chaos, really, at the end of the day, which is obviously not where we want to be. And I really believe that we don't have to be there, because there are some small changes that we can make, like you were saying, put in the processes and systems that will allow sales leaders to have the visibility and control and the skill set to be able to coach their people effectively. But at the moment, so we got those two gaps there. So gap one is right at the top of the organization, with people that are leading, setting strategy, but maybe are not very comfortable and confident with the sales function. And then we've got a problem where we've got super salespeople, often daily they get promoted, and everyone in that C-suite is just assuming that they know how to manage. And of course, they probably feel a bit intimidated, right, to put up their hand and say, yeah, I did a really great job in sales, but I need some support in this area.
Yeah, and the again, that goes back to the two different places, right? Where the skill set and the needed for a sales manager, a sales leader, and the difference and that of a producer are completely different. And so for somebody who gets promoted and doesn't raise their hand, after being that which it puts them at a disadvantage, number
Mm.
one. But the other part to recognize is we're promoting salespeople, right? And I don't think that we should run away from promoting salespeople, but we should recognize that sales is very heavy ego driven
Mm.
piece, right? And most people don't want to raise their hand, to your point, to say, I don't have the skills, please help me. They
Yeah,
because this ego is there. And so we need to recognize that piece, as well, and help them out.
totally.
Um,
Which goes
I-
back to what you were saying before, is really this is a company structural issue that is missing. And as a company, we should say, you know what, it's fine to promote these guys up, but where's our structure?
right.
Because if we're not using CRM properly, if we don't have a process to help these guys to manage the sales team and all of the coaching and all of those skill sets, then can we really say that we are doing a great job to promote and develop and help the people coming through the organization? Well, we can't, right? We
That's
can't.
exactly right.
So this is really interesting, because it kind of leads on to, what's the future of sales, right? Because ironically, as we just said, we're not in a situation where technology is diminishing; it's going the other way. So without those kind of processes in place, we're just heading down the road of adding more more technology into the into the fray. And I know, you specialize in like the CRM and sales technology, and I know that's an area that you really want to spend time as a major goal for the future, teaching that piece of the puzzle. I guess we're seeing a lot of sort of, I guess, confusion and probably a little bit of fear as well about AI and how we incorporate that into sales. I mean, from your perspective, do you think it's a case of, that technology replacing salespeople, or is it more that this is a new piece of the engine that we need to look at how we fit that into the sales revenue engine?
Peter, I would say it's the latter, actually. I don't see that it's going to replace salespeople.
Mm,
Because simply because AI does not have the ability at this point to create to have that human judicial piece that
yeah.
needs to take place, right? It doesn't run on ethical boundaries. It just runs off of logic, and so we need humans to embrace the ethical pieces there and to kind of guide it. But I do see it as being a teammate
Mm,
for salespeople and for sales leaders, and those that embrace it will do wonderful. Those that don't embrace it may get replaced. And that's the piece to recognize, right? Is that it needs to be embraced. And I think it will, if you embrace it, you have no problem moving forward. I do want to go back to real quickly to the piece that you were talking about previously, and with about the CRMs and 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 that piece. That's part of the infrastructure, right?
yeah.
So if if you decide to employ an AI component within your organization and you don't have the framework and the structural piece together that architect and a good sales architect has done, what you did is you created a lot of velocity in a vehicle that is held together with one wheel. And so, which this could be very awesome to watch from an outside standpoint, but it's scary if you're the one inside the vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So, that is one cautionary tale that I would say with AI. Be careful as you put it together. Make sure you have the architectural structure first.
Exactly. Yeah. So you need a robust foundation, and then because you've got consistency and predictability with that system, then you can afford to, you know, make some changes, improvements, and see how that works out. And you've got a baseline consistency there, haven't you, to work with, so you can see what might need to be changed. I mean,
Yeah, and it moves us from having sales volume to
yeah.
having sales intelligence,
Mm,
right? That's what it does. So, but in order, you still need a human to understand the intelligence. So it's not, back to your question, it's never really going to go away. It's just a shift.
it's always going to be a balance, isn't it? I think for sure. I mean, if you were stepping into if you were stepping into a mid-market company tomorrow and you were doing like a fractional sales revenue officer's role, what's the first thing that you would look at if you were looking at, say, like the structural integrity of that revenue engine? What would you be interested in looking at?
I would first look at the CRM, because the CRM for salespeople and the CRM for the sales leadership should be the single point of truth,
Mm,
right? It should be. So if the data is messy, the leadership is flying blind and doesn't really know what's going on. I'd check the sales velocity formula, the opportunities, deal size, win rate, that kind of piece,
mm,
right? I'd look at the length of the sales cycle. If you can give me those kind of numbers, I can really understand where things are kind of where they're working and where they're not working, right?
Yeah.
That's the quickest way to do an evaluation, and see if their revenue engine that they're trying to build has any major structural leak to it,
Right.
right? And really, to get back to where we started in this, as an architect of a sales engine, you you need to make sure that it's structurally sound, right?
Mm.
I've got construction going on in my home today. I hired an architect to make sure that the roof is not going to fall down on top of me. Um, it's the same thing goes along with this piece, is that architect needs to be able to have a conversation with the people that are actually employing the system, right? So there's that dialogue that has to take place, because salespeople are not going to input the proper information if it's tedious and mundane, and they see it as a gotcha, as opposed to a system that will help you, right?
So,
And when those things happen, you don't get your single point of truth.
mm, yeah, and that seems to be, I don't know what your experience is, but I'm just thinking back over maybe the last 4 or 5 projects that I've been doing, and this is a common challenge, that there's either not enough adoption or there's not enough accountability. So there's really that one version of truth is missing. So from that point onwards, it's what the CRM should be giving you in terms of meaningful data that you can respond to. It's not there. So and again, that if you just go back upstairs, it's like, as a company, we don't have that structure in place. So
Right.
I don't know if that's, is that been your experience, or what you've seen out there in the marketplace?
It has been my experience, and I would say, the vast majority of time when CRMs have been rolled out, they've been rolled out. Um, Somebody in the marketing department who doesn't understand the sales has been in charge of that, or somebody in the IT department who doesn't understand sales is doing that, or maybe somebody from the finance department, is and they're employing the CRM with their view on it, because there's data that they want to get, but they didn't employ it with the notion of the people that are going to be inputting the information,
Yeah,
right?
that is a critical factor. And I think the most successful projects that I've seen where we've done this is where we've actually, pre conversations with the CRM vendors, we've actually gone in. I remember 1 or 2 times, I had one client who had they were running 4 different computer systems, because basically each department had got its own funding and was kind of siloed. So we were they were trying to bring all of these under one roof. But the key to it was mapping out the sales process, literally, almost by hand on a whiteboards or white sheets, and seeing what was actually happening in the process, any duplication, and so that we could give the CRM guys a roadmap. Because without doing that work, they would come in and say, well, what do you want? And words are fine, but unless they've got a diagram to follow, their response is always, yeah, of course we can do it. But how many iterations, how many changes? Because it's not clear. The system can always do it, right?
That's
Technically.
right.
But
That's
unless you and I can sit down with them and say, right, this is our process, A to Z, and this is how we need it to work for our organization, and make it, frictionless for the sales guys, then it's going to be problematic. It's going to be very difficult to get adoption, right? If uploading documents, or after you come out of a customer meeting, if you can't do it in like 5 or 10 minutes, then and the technology is there to do it. So it's not like it can't be done these days very easily. But I think it's thinking like a salesperson and thinking through every step and removing those barriers that might be there to adoption.
right. And if you remember when we went back up to the beginning, it was a matter of employing when we talked about the Lean Six Sigma. It was a matter of employing the pieces to be frictionless,
Yeah.
right, for that salesperson. And so this is a place where we would engineer that as part of the piece. So
Yeah, excellent. That makes sense. Well, look, it's been great talking to you. Time's gone, as always, very fast. But I just want to thank you for joining us on the long game today. If people want to reach out to you or learn more about Synergy Growth Advisors, where should they go?
absolutely, Peter. You can find me at Shawn Hamilton on LinkedIn
Hmm.
or at synergygrowthadvisors.com. Or you can find me actually at the University of Houston, at the Bauer College there. And I'd be happy to sit down and chat with anybody.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today, and it's been a fascinating conversation. Lots of great ideas to think about. So, thanks for your time, and wish you a great day.
You as well. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks for listening to The Long Game. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a comment or share your thoughts. You can also get in touch at peterholland.uk.